anniversary of two fathers, 12th, 13th anniversary, 13th anniversary of two fathers' lives. So I think a lot of people have been reminiscing about father's life and his relationship with father, true father, with true parents. The last time I met father was in London in 2011. That's when there was a public speech there, so I went to London for that. I also went in 2012 when Athi Songwa in Korea, Father Songwa. That was a very special time as well, a kind of serious time. And mother was very overwhelmed at the time and very exhausted. So many things were going on. But anyway, it's a memorable moment for me. But of course, I want to talk today a little bit more about, I think that's more pertinent to our own hearts, which is related to two parents, but it's also our own experience in life, which is, as you studied and I have studied a lot, Father's talked a lot about the four great realms of heart. So we're going to talk a little bit today about the four realms of heart. In a way, I'm speaking from my perspective in life as a grandparent, but of course, I want to allude to the different realms, like children's realm and siblings realm and conjugal realm and parents realm, the grandparents realm, because they're like all stepping stones to the next level, and also we cannot really fully appreciate, let's say, the parental realm without understanding the children's realm or what we experienced as a child growing up or in the conjugal relationship. You need to experience like the fullest love of God, but sometimes there's blockages in our heart due to unresolved issues when we were a child in our own families or situations like that. So it may be difficult to fully experience the full love of God in that relationship. So looking at the children's realm of heart first, I'd like to look at it from the perspective of myself, in a sense, of my own family. And I've often, not often, but quite a few times I've talked about, but I always talk a little bit with a new perspective, because as you get older, you see things with a new perspective. That is the greatness, I suppose, of old age, is that you can see things in a new way. You can never see the same way as you saw as a child or as a sibling or as you see it from this perspective. So when I reflect back on my childhood, growing up, and my relationship with my own parents, and my parents were very sincere, hardworking farmers. So I grew up in that environment, and my father was 40 when he got married, and my mother was 20, maybe 20 or something like that. So there were like a big age disparity between my father and mother. I think it was due to the circumstances of the time that often happened, because my father, he had the promise of a farm in the family, but he couldn't take it over because there was debts accruing on the farm. And so he had to work for many years to get the money together so to pay off the debts. And then he came back to the farm. And so he was in a position to get married. He had already met my mother she was quite a young girl when he probably met her. And then she went off and became a nurse, and she went to England to be a nurse, but they kept in contact. So when they got back, they got married. So this was one of the things, of course. The age difference, of course, is a factor. It was never a factor in our lives, to be honest, like parents are parents. It didn't matter whether my father was 40 or my mother was, a young woman. But the one factor I have related to now is that I had a trouble in my childhood. I had good experiences, but I had very disappointing experiences. And the good experiences were because I grew up on a farm and I had the nature. I was very fond of the nature, the animals, and going out in the fields and working with my dad and all that stuff. But there was another side of it which was very difficult for me, was as a disappointment, because My mother wasn't, she was, I, she was critical, very critical of me, and I was always at loggerheads with her because of that, because I was always looking for love, and affection, but she didn't give it. She couldn't give it. Now, it was only many years later that I discovered something very important about my parents. And one of the things was I discovered, which I probably didn't take so seriously at the time growing up, because all the things that matters when you're a child is how you feel towards your parents. Are they loving you? Do you receive love? Do they understand you? That's what I would be thinking. And I was also a bit of a loner as well because I didn't share my feelings with my parents, in that sense. But what I understood later, and this was just a very profound thing about my mother, was that she lost her mother when she was a teenager. So she had to take responsibility as a teenager for her younger siblings. So this kind of curtailed her growth as a young woman, because she had too much responsibility. And then she got married too young, and she had to take too much responsibility as a mother. So that was what I felt, that this is what she gave up everything to be a parent or a mother, but she had a deep frustration, and this came out in her relationship with me particularly, but also with the others in different ways. So that's something that I've learned. And then I also discovered that my father, his mother, passed away when he was a boy. So it's funny how they came together, but they had both similar backgrounds or similar trauma, you could say, in their life. And yet, why did they come together? Did God hope to heal that through their coming together, or they had a different plan? And so in a way, it took maybe until my generation to fully understand and appreciate what I could do for them, to liberate them, to free them from that. But anyway, that's just a little experience about childhood, my childhood growing up. And each of us has a very unique childhood. And some people are very happy and it's very contented. And I always say that's very fortunate. If you had such a beautiful childhood and you felt always embraced by your parents and loved by your parents and fully understood. But that wasn't my experience, But of course, I respect my parents. But unfortunately, because I lacked this closeness with my mother, it didn't make it easy as I grew older to feel close even to true parents, I never felt really close to two parents. I think because I grew up like that, something lacking in my heart, and it's difficult for me to feel like they're my true parents, I've often heard that you have to love your parents if you want to love true parents, you have to feel close to them. I know it's difficult to take sometimes because we sometimes don't want to deal with it. We want to move on with our lives and we don't want to think that there's something that has to be resolved or healed, in our lives. So therefore, I think that's my feeling towards true parents is that I thought always father is he's a terrific leader. He's a great speaker. He's so charismatic, and this was how I related to father. I did not relate to father as my father, not even my spiritual father. My true parents is even a higher level than that. But yet, gradually, I came to understand father and mother, of course, as well. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about the sibling realm of heart. And I hope that you can relate it in your own ways, your own experience. But my sibling realm of heart is growing up with my own siblings. I being the second oldest, that's my position in the family. You always find your position in the family is very important. Whether you're the oldest or the youngest or in the middle will completely color how you feel about your parents and about how you look at life. So a lot of things you can say about somebody, you look at them and you can say, if somebody tells me they're the oldest in the family, I can see certain qualities and characteristics in the oldest person, which is they take more responsibility. They maybe take more initiative. I see that in my older brother. He has that kind of capacity to at least to take care of his younger siblings. He would call me. I rarely call him, but he always calls me. And then my position in the as the second oldest, I feel I have quite a broad viewpoint. Now, recently, my youngest brother, he's 5, 6 years younger than me, and he has been had a terrible illness in a hospital in Limerick. He's had like severe, he had cancer of the throat and the neck. So he'd been going through this very difficult, painful treatment, radiotherapy. So this has brought out something new in our family because he's been reporting consistently about his experience, and how he's dealing with the pain, and we're on the family app, and he shares everything with us every day. Like we're a family, we don't share every day, small things, but because it's a big thing, he's sharing every day how he feels, and I'm really resolved. I'm going to go through this. It was a 35-day treatment, and he's now finished today. Thank God. He's finished the treatment, and so he's in recovery. What I feel about that is he's my youngest brother, so I always felt close to him. And I'm sure you have a younger brother or whatever. You feel the same thing. You feel protective. But one thing as you get older, I just say from the perspective of an older grandparent level, that you start to feel closer to your siblings when you get older. That's a funny thing. But now I don't say it's absolute, but certainly in our case, we started to feel closer. Because when you're young, you have your life ahead of you. You've got a family perhaps, or you have children you're looking after. Your time is all consuming. Maybe you don't have time. But as you get older, there's a tendency to feel that they're like it's almost returning to your hometown, going back to those original relationships in the family and so forth. That's very much an experience that I had recently. Of course, I'd like to talk about how rarely my children, but I don't want to talk about it at this point because I want to look at it from that perspective rather than saying how it was for me. Now, there's leading into the conjugal realm of heart, and this is probably the most important realm of heart from Father's words and all so forth, because we experience God's love through your spouse, and it's the same for me. It's the same for all of you. But we have the unique understanding that heavenly parents, God, is a being of dual characteristics of harmonized masculinity and femininity. So we need a relationship with your wife. You experience another side of God through your wife or through your husband, and within that relationship, within the wife, there's also your mother, your younger sister, your elder sister. It could be different relationships at different times. It's all included in that relationship with your wife. Your wife represents all women of the world. Half the population are women, but only one woman is chosen for you. So that's what's so precious about the blessing. It's precious about what we're trying to achieve. The relationship is unique. Your husband or your wife are unique. It takes a whole lifetime to understand this person. And sometimes we don't understand the perspective of a man or the perspective of a woman, don't understand their actions. They could be very different. And most times in the blessing, we find that the relationship is so extreme. The man and woman are so different, and the husband and wife are so different. They're quite extreme. Well, that's a beautiful blessing in itself because it means that God wants to do something through that, to resolve something. You could progress Heavenly Parent's heart. You could comfort God or heal something in your own lineage through this relationship. If you stick with it, if you see God's love within that. I've had experiences, of course, whereas it had been very tough at the beginning when I was a young couple. We didn't we didn't see eye to eye. And I used to always say, I think I said this before, I used to say, "Oh, you think you're perfect, you know?" I said, "You think you're perfect." But of course, she never thought she was perfect, but it's communication. You get this feeling, this person thinks he knows everything. And I could not see my own problems, my own trauma, which is that I'm distancing myself from this relationship. I'm going off on my own. And it came from my upbringing because I was hurt in my childhood. Then I brought this into my intimate relationship with my wife. You know, I would be feeling like, oh, I need time to myself. I need a lot of space. I can't. I can't see from her perspective. That was in the early days, but gradually, like Father often says, if you have a fight or with your wife or a husband, try and resolve it within a shorter time. Like if it takes a week to resolve something, bring it down to 3 days, but that's too long, 3 hours, 3 minutes even. So eventually that's what happens with your loving relationship with your spouse. You can bring it down to the amount of distance. You don't separate. You don't say, "Oh, I cannot speak to this person." You tend to try and find a resolution quite quickly. That's one thing I've learned about this relationship as a husband and wife. And of course, growing old together, of course, is another sphere in itself because you leave, like in our case, and we became grandparents, means that we didn't have children around us. And for quite a while, we were on our own, like as parents. And then we became grandparents. And then our grandchildren are not living with us because our children are living in Malta and Australia and Spain. So my 6 grandchildren are not close by me. So this was kind of a big thing to take at the start, quite a hit in a sense. And in one sense, I was quite disturbed by it, I was thinking, why did they go away? Or was it something about us? But anyway, something I've experienced through this realm of heart is the grandparents' realm, is that grandparents are closer to God. God, like True Father says, the grandparents represent God, parents represent the past, children represent the future. So this time, I don't see them enough, my grandchildren. So therefore, the times that I do see them, it's quite precious. And this time we were in Spain during the summer. And yeah, I found that my grandchildren respond very affectionately to me, even though they don't know me so well. So it's so surprising. And the interaction you feel with your grandchildren is that they're very pure and they're very innocent. So this is a beautiful feeling. And my granddaughter, like she'd say things very honestly. Like she said one day when we were going out for a walk or something, and then she didn't say it to me personally, but she said to my son, "Wow, granddad has a big tummy. Why is he pregnant or something?" And but things like that, And they're making jokes with me in the car, because I had to sit in the back seat when I was traveling because the car was a bit congested, and the younger son was in the front, and then I was always in the back, and it was stuck together with the 2 grandchildren, one on my side, one on each side, 2 girls, and they were making a lot of fun with me, So I was trying to be patient, but I am patient anyway. Yeah, that's just an experience of grandparents' love. It's a beautiful experience. But one thing, and I'm just coming to the conclusion really, is that as you get older, you wonder and you look back in your life and you think many things I could have done better. I made many mistakes. And if you have too much time, you tend to be that kind of introspection. And also, even though, as Father says, as you get older, you should be looking forward to the spiritual world, looking forward to going to the spirit world to meet your close, you know, as we read, your close relatives, maybe your spouse is gone, or your parents or your grandparents. And I was thinking, why don't I feel like that? Why don't I look forward to that? Yet, maybe because I feel I have lots of things to fulfill yet. I can't say I'm in that state. You know, I've heard people say, oh, I'm ready to go to Spirit World anytime. But I feel, no, I'm not ready to go yet. Maybe God needs me for something still, you know, on this earth. And so that's really what I felt like. And there's a psychologist which I used to study when I was younger, and maybe you come across him. He's called Erickson, and he studied the stages of life, and they run quite parallel with the four realms of heart, except they're a little bit more extended. You know, he goes through that the child's realm of heart, and he goes to the siblings and all the different realms, and he says it's all very deeply connected. And he looks at it from a psychosocial way, but it's still very relevant because it looks at the whole life cycle. And he says that the old age, like our age group, you're trying to find integrity and value to your life. You know, it should be a time of accomplishments and of achievements. But sometimes we don't always feel that. You know, we think, oh, we did not achieve what we were supposed to have achieved back when I could have been. And then through that, it's like you might feel certain despair, he said, and regret. So these are two aspects. And I have felt this, you know, and I'm trying to resolve it myself in my life, you know, the balance to resolve it in a good way. And of course, ideally, I have something precious to look forward to. I want to contribute still to the providence. You know, I feel need to contribute something. And thank you very much for being here today. I just hope that something like hits something with you. You know, every family is unique and every situation is completely different, and every relationship. That's why God created all of us with unique and eternal nature, because that God invested so much energy, and he gave and forgot that he gave. You know, like Father always says this, give and forget that you give. That's heavenly God, heavenly parents. Because he invested so much in us as his children, he needs to eventually receive all the love from his beautiful children, his unique children, and his eternal children. So that's really the conclusion of my message today. I leave that with a closing of prayer. Our beloved Heavenly Parents, we want to thank you so much for your love, for your grace and your love. We want to be truly grateful for the precious truth of the divine principle, and the truth that we experience through the realms of heart. Four realms of heart, including grandparents' realm of heart. We can feel your presence, feel your love, and we can allow you to live with us on this earth, that you want to dwell with us as your children. You want to experience all the things that we experience, and you want to be like a child. You want to be like a growing child and a growing teenager. You want to be living in the relationship between husbands and wives. You want to be like a parent, but you're the best parent of all. You were a grandparent, but you didn't see it fully come to pass because of the situation with our ancestors, fallen ancestors. You're still waiting for it all to bear fruit, and that your investment will bear fruit. And we're so thankful and fortunate and grateful for our true parents who came to start the ball rolling, to open the way for true love to be poured into the world and to heal all the trauma of past generations. We want to be grateful, and we want to thank you this day. We report with gratitude. My name, John Kennedy, of a blessed family, and attendance of Holy Mother Hand. Adieu.
Hey, thank you, John, for sharing that and giving so much insight on different four realms of heart and all your personal experiences. Yeah, I think you made some like such good points about, understanding true parents as part of understanding your own parents and vice versa, and how important it is to foster those relationships with your siblings is as even as you get older. That is really sweet how you like they feel like a piece of home for you as you get older because you start to have like less time to actually, hold on to those connections. Um, yeah, I thought it was a funny story about your granddaughter pointing out your stomach. It just brought a memory to me when Brandon and I were looking through photos in like our old family album. I just started seeing photos of like my dad, my mom when they were young, in like their 20s, like before they were blessed and we were born. And they were just photos of them and like people they were fundraising in the US. And I just thought it was so interesting. Like I know I just realized your granddaughter will never know you as like a young man. Like that's her perspective of you is like she'll always see you as like how old you are now with like, so wise with all those experiences. Yeah. No, very full and but no, yeah, it just brought that memory to me that we'll never actually see. I just had like a sudden like desire to like, wow, I thought it'd be so interesting to see. I'd love to see my parents like at that age. I thought that'd be really interesting because we'll only ever see them as like through this perspective. Yeah, so thank you for that. On that note, I think I would like to ask everyone to rise for our closing song.